You go over to China, 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 China. You take China.
China.
China. I love them. China. China, 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 China. I have to have my China. China, China, because China. I go to China. China, 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 China.
China! Socio-cultural systems. Art. Painters and calligraphers made famous masterpieces that are still admired today. Even the emperors were skilled painters. Homes and buildings. The Chinese built houses out of wood, tile, plaster, brick, and stone to construct buildings in the earlier ages. The basic structure of a building was a timber frame with wooden pillars to support the roof. The wealthy homes were roofed with glazed ceramic tiles. They had projecting curved eaves to protect walls from rain.
Music. The traditional musical instruments can be divided into four categories: string, percussion, plucked, and woodwind instruments. A few examples are the horse-headed fiddle. It's a bowed string instrument with a scroll carved like the horse's head. Listening to it, it sounds like a violin and looks like it too. It's popular in Mongolian music. Influence into European music when Marco Polo brought one back from his travels through China. It produced a vivid sound and composed many songs for it. The lute or the pipa. Originally named after the loquat fruits by the Tang dynasty, the pipa has reached its summit. It had lots of love from the royal court to common folk. It occupied the predominant place in the orchestra. Many well-known writers and poets creating and mentioned the pipa in their works. Players changed from holding it transversely to holding it vertically, and they plucked the strings. It looks like a guitar and a cutting board formed in one. The erhu, also called the huqin, was introduced from the western region during the Tang dynasty, 960 to 1279 Common Era. When playing, the erhu is usually on his/her lap and moves across the vertical string using a bow. The flute. The earliest flute was made from bone over 7,000 years ago. Some were made from bamboo. Playing it, you cover 6 holes and blowing through a side hole while moving fingers flexibly between the holes. A sound is produced that is leisurely, mellifluous-like sound from far away.
Political systems. Government. The emperor is the ruler of China and they had absolute power. The power of life and death all over the subject and the power to make whatever law he wishes. China was divided into provinces, each ruled by a governor in the emperor's name. The emperor chose magistrates who makes laws that are very strict. The government wanted the power to be kept in the capital so the other provinces won't overrule the capital. Government is divided into 3 main parts: economy and finance, military affairs, and administration and justice. The Council of State was the most powerful body with 9 members. They freely discussed matters of government and listened to the advice from all over the empire.
Agriculture. The majority of people lived in farming villages. People carrying out tasks to grow their own crops, sowing, plowing, weeding, harvesting, storing, and they also had the task of keeping themselves fed, clothed, baking bread, processing milk, construction work. Northern China, millet was the staple crop, while in the Yangtze Basin and southern China, rice was their staple. The Yangtze Basin was the earliest home of domesticated rice. In the Shang and early Zhou times, cattle, sheep, and goats were important in the economy. The aristocracy also indulged in great hunting expeditions for both food and as a practice for war. In the late Shang period, soya beans were a valuable source of nutrition, and manufacturing activity took place in small units, the homes of craftsmen and farmers. It was there that food was processed, textiles were spun and woven, silk was produced, and all dairy products were manufactured. The introduction of iron was a major step forward for manufacturing. Iron objects were much easier and cheaper to produce than bronze ones. Trade routes spanned China in early Shang dynasty and mid-Zhou time. That trade expanded markedly. State government became active promoters of trade and industry. Metal coinage was introduced into China in the late 5th century and circulated more and more around China. This facilitated trade, and the expansion of trade led to the emergence of new cities and towns. The standardization of coinage, rode with weights, and measured.
Natural resources. Some natural resources from China were coal, iron ore, tin, lead, copper, gold, salt, clay, and bamboo. Technology they have were gunpowder, paper, horse collar, the clock, and the wheelbarrow.
They generally wore tunics, which are like long t-shirts. Women in China wore long tunics down to the ground with belts. For men, they wore shorter tunics down to their knees. Poor people made their clothes of hemp and rami, which is a plant like nettles. The rich wore silk.
Kublai Khan, 1279 to 1294. His grandfather began launching raids into China almost immediately, after riding on nomadic tribes of Mongolian plateau in 1206. Kublai completed the conquest in 1279, bringing China under foreign rule for the first time. Kublai deemed the Chinese legally inferior and recruited outsiders such as Marco Polo, who was a Venetian merchant, to administer the realm. He also tried hard to win the support of the populace, repairing damages for war, loosening his predecessor's domain, penal code, promoting the arts, and expanding the efficient Mongolian postal system into China. He gave his ancestors Chinese names and built an imperial capital, or modern-day Beijing. Despite suffering from depression and his morbid obesity, he took a firm grip of his power until the death of 1294. The Yuan dynasty was overthrown in 1368 and the Mongol Empire started crumbling.
Natural resources. Some natural resources from China. Don't judge me, it's 3 in the morning.
Mellifluous, like sound from far away. That's it.
Wait, what?
Natural resources. Some natural resources from China were coal, iron ore, tin, lead, copper. I already recorded this, I forgot.
Music, the tradition.
Agriculture. The majority of people lived in farming
Hugh Quinn